Hello, and welcome to the Cantina,
Today I want to talk about vehicles during the golden age of action figure collecting.
which is kind of commonly known as the period between the Saga collection and the beginning of the Vintage collection 1.0. So roughly about 2006 until about late 2011. Throughout this time, Hasbro was producing vehicles like clockwork, the big Millennium Falcon, the big AT-AT, all the different repaints of their Republic Gunship, Jedi Starfighters, vehicles for the Separatists to roll around in. There were all kinds of vehicles. It truly was the renaissance of vehicles in the Star Wars 3¼ action figure line. Contrast this to 2024, when vehicles are far and few between. Even though the ones we get today are of exceptional quality, unlike anything we've ever seen before in the 3¼ action figure line. Things like the Sail Barge, the Razor Crest, the Ghost, but all of those are HasLabs. While in their archives, Hasbro apparently still has access to molds like this right here. This right here, the 2009 Star Wars The Clone Wars Republic Gunship Crumb Bomber, was a Toys R Us exclusive. Fabulous vehicle. Now costs about $500 on the aftermarket. There are so many vehicles from that golden age, from that renaissance, that Hasbro can go back and pull from and reissue in TVC, and perhaps make some tweaks so that they take away the playability, I guess. If we don't want launching missiles, which I don't think would bother many collectors if you're resurrecting older vehicles that they can't really get at an affordable price if they look at eBay. I don't think those missiles and features are going to really bother them. On newer vehicles, okay, yeah, I could see that. We don't want to get the E-Wing with launching missiles. Okay, sure. But on older vehicles, they could bring those back. The molds exist. Just repaint them, retool them, do what you need to do to put them into TVC with new paint apps and make them available so that newer collectors who have maybe not been in this line, who have maybe not been collecting this line for a long period of time, can access them at reasonable prices. It's all doable. I mean, assuming that these molds still exist, and Hasbro has told me before that they do exist.
So we do have all that.
Then they can go back into their well and pull back some of those ATTE, some of those turbo tanks, some of those gunships, and renew them. I mean, the R&D's already been done, right? You're just repainting, retooling these for very minimal cost and offering them to new generations of collectors who'd probably really appreciate that. But who knows, maybe you don't want Hasbro to take that route. Maybe you would like them to just do everything from the ground up, which I think would be ideal, but I wouldn't expect that when some of these, the tooling library, if it's there, contains some amazing things that they could just bring back. I think the ideal would always be for them to do an all-new sculpt to 2024 standards, but if it's either that or nothing, come on, bring back the gunship, bring back the turbo tank. I mean, I know a lot of you guys would love to see those, and hey, I would buy them again too. I know a lot of collectors who would buy them again.
So in this video, we're going to be talking about my top 5 Hasbro Star Wars vehicles from the past that should be brought back and resurrected for the vintage collection.
Ready? Here we go. Kicking things off at number 5 is the Big AT-AT, or if you prefer, AT-AT. One of the most recognizable vehicles in all of Star Wars, the Big AT-AT has been previously released on 3 occasions. It was first released in 2010 during the Shadows of the Dark Side line of product, and almost simultaneously came out under the Vintage collection at the $99.99 price point. A couple years later, it was one of the last vehicles to exist in the first iteration of TVC as the Endor version, available exclusively at Toys R Us. Remember those? For $149.99. If released today as a straight repaint, it would undoubtedly command an asking price of at least $250 and possibly $300. Still, that would be better than the $500 plus that the vehicle sells for on eBay. Today, the vehicle still holds up and is a collection centerpiece along with the big Millennium Falcon, Sail Barge, and Razor Crest. Only repainting would be required as the electronic functions do not hinder the aesthetics in any way. At number 4 is the Clone Turbo Tank. One of the most impressive vehicles released during the Clone Wars era, the Clone Turbo Tank was Hasbro's large flagship vehicle of 2009. Retailing at $99.99, it was the only time the vehicle was ever released. It was first seen in Revenge of the Sith before appearing in the Clone Wars and eventually Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Like the big AT-AT, most of the action features are built into the vehicle and do not detract from its aesthetics. A retool would enable these features to be removed, however, which may or may not help to get the price down. If released today, the turbo tank would undoubtedly cost at least $200, if not $250. Current aftermarket prices begin at about $400, which would make a reissue with improved deco a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. Coming in at number 3 is the Snowspeeder, another original trilogy classic previously released in TVC as a Target exclusive and released around the same time in the Shadows of the Dark Side line of 2010. The Snowspeeder retailed at $24.99. Yep, $24.99. Now, if you look at eBay, it's occasionally selling for $100, but most often averages between $150 to $200. If it returned today at the 2024 price of, let's say, $60, maybe $75, I'd be in for another. Bundle it with a carded TVC Snowspeeder Luke for bonus points, or reissue it as the T-87 Airspeeder as seen in Obi-Wan Kenobi. If the tooling exists,
So we do have all that.
either version would be a hit with collectors new and old. At number 2 on my list is the ATTE. The ATTE is synonymous with the prequel and Clone Wars era. Its appearance in Attack of the Clones made waves, but despite it being seen then, as well as in Revenge of the Sith, it would not be until 2008 that Hasbro would get around to creating one in the 3 3/4 inch scale to coincide with the Clone Wars. A sizable vehicle like the turbo tank, the ATTE functions in a similar way in that it is able to hold your Grand Army of the Republic in its various cockpits, gunner stations, and spacious interior. As with other vehicles on the list, the ATTE's electronic functions are well ingrained into the vehicle and do not hamper its appearance. Minor retooling would likely be needed in order to make the legs more sturdy, and a fresh coat of weathering would go a long way to giving it a live-action aesthetic. The ATTE tends to sell between $400 to $500 on eBay, which contrasts with its original MSRP of $99.99. Like the turbo tank, I would project this one to go for $200 to $250 in today's market if released once again. And finally, at number 1 is the Republic Gunship. Of all the vehicles fans think of when the prequel trilogy comes to mind, or even the Clone Wars for that matter, the Republic Gunship comes in on top. Released in 6 different iterations between 2002 and 2013, the market desire for the Republic Gunship is self-evident when scouring the going rate on the aftermarket. Does Hasbro have it in them to put out a 7th release? Well, it's been 10 years since the last one, which was the final vehicle released in the first iteration of the Vintage Collection. Back then, it cost $119.99 at Toys R Us and came with both bubble turrets. This was up from the $39.99 it originally cost in 2002, without the turrets, of course. Today, I surmise it would be about $200 with the turrets. Far better than the $500 plus the TVC one goes for on eBay, however. Some of the variants like the Crumb Bomber, the Lucky Laku, and the Tiger Shark version all sell in the $500 range as well. The Republic Gunship is iconic. It is one of the most well-known vehicles in all of Star Wars, and younger generations have the nostalgia needed to make it a success in the current era. My proposal for a new Republic Gunship is to do something similar to the original TVC version, complete with the ball turrets. However, I would further wish for this one to have both the normal bay doors as well as the Clone Wars Crumb Bomber style doors as options. Include the front Crumb Bomber doors as well, in addition to the opening rocket launchers at the top. Improve the paint apps and throw it under the Revenge of the Sith label in TVC or the Mandalorian, and you've got a mega hit that's just begging for itself to get made. But let me know what you think. What vehicle would you like to see Hasbro bring back from the past? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe. Catch me on Cantina Social Hour every Friday talking about Star Wars toys. No matter where you're tuning in from out in the galaxy, thank you for watching VC. Until next time, bye-bye.